All right, ladies and gentlemen, and we are live. What is Gucci Manucci's? Welcome to the Half Court Podcast. I am Darwin. I got AV behind the camera as usual. And before we get this podcast episode started, I want to let y'all know that the merch is going to be coming out pretty soon. So stay on the lookout for that. That's just going to be pretty much to support the podcast. That way we can upgrade our equipment. Eventually we want to have a couple of mics, invite multiple guests at the same time. The feedback on the podcast has been amazing, overwhelming, and we are very thankful for that. But without further ado, let's get this episode started. We have a very special guest today. We have Christian Soto. So Christian Soto, kind of take it over and tell us what you do, and let's just kind of go from there, man.
All right. Well, I'm a registered nurse for an ICU for one of the bigger health systems here in Oklahoma. Essentially, I take care of patients day to day. Sometimes I get floated. It's not often, but sometimes, I end up in the ER or some other unit. And, yeah, I take care of patients.
What hospital do you work for?
OU Medical.
OU Medical. Okay. So that's like that's the state hospital. How long have you been doing this?
My very first job in healthcare was in 2008. It was actually for Norman Regional, and I worked there as a perioperative assistant. I've kind of fluctuated in and out for school reasons, but eventually I got back to it, got my worked through the system. I got my CNA, then I got an AUA, then I got an LPN, then I got my RN. So that's where I'm at now.
And how much is it, like 4 years that you had to put in to get your title?
Even if you were to do an associate's, you got to get the prereqs done. Take you the first 2 years, and then you're gonna get into a program, and that's another 2 years right there. So anybody with an RN probably got about 4 years that they put into college.
Gotcha. And where did you go to school for this?
OCCC, and then I got some of my credits at OU down in Norman.
Okay, nice.
So,
So,
did you pay out of pocket, or you had like
Paid out of pocket.
So a fucking grinder.
Out of pocket.
The Mexican.
Damn.
From Mexico.
Sí le sudaron los huevos, como dicen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but hey, like at the end of the day, bro, like
worth
there's no excuse. You know what I'm saying? There's no excuse. You like that's what I fucking admire of our Hispanic people. They put the work in no matter what. Business owners, rather it's going to school to get a profession, get your diploma and shit. So that's something I respect. And man, it's been crazy. So kind of talk to us about like the experience as far as the hospital, because I'm pretty sure it gets hectic at times, man.
Man, I worked in a lot of places, and it can be hectic just like anywhere else. Prior to the hospital, I was a charge nurse over the county jail downtown.
Oh shit.
That's 1,700 inmates at least.
So your job was to take care of them as far as making sure they're good?
So I was in charge of other nurses and assistants, and make sure that everybody in there was safe as I could get them. Sometimes there'd be individuals that would refuse to take their insulin or something, and it became an issue. And a jail's not the safest place, but we try to make it, as healthcare professionals, we try to make it as safe as possible. So
Gotcha.
I worked with Dr. King there, and 2 nurse practitioners. We had a psychologist, psychiatrist, and we did what we could. I was there for about a year, and I worked my way through. I started at the front, just like checking people in, and then going and asking them their questions. And eventually I was on the floor giving meds, insulin, whatever. But then I became charged, and eventually I was like, okay, I did what I could here. This is about as good as I can get the program. It's time for me to move on and get some new skills. And then I went to back to OU, I guess, really, because I'd worked at OU prior as an assistant. And I was there for about 2.5 years. Coming back to OU, I got interviewed in Edmond. And so I got lucky. They gave me the job over some other people. And kind of, like they say, like the rest is history.
Yeah, it kind of took off from there. You also mentioned before we started the podcast that you worked at the ER.
Right. So a lot of times the ER is short.
Is it like hectic in there? Because it's like all you get is just all kinds of crazy shit.
I mean, you get a mixed variety, and you never know. Day to day, it could be, it could be a fractured arm that we reduce. We have to sedate someone there, some conscious sedation. Or other times, it could be a COVID possibility where, now there's so many steps that you have to take. You have to actually pair with somebody, like set up the what you're going to do, have them outside the room ready to go, get the test done, bring it out. It's like bag, and then finally put it in a bag out on the person waiting for you outside the room. And then, of course, you're going to disinfect everything. And then even then, you got to immediately transport it over to the lab. And unfortunately, where I'm at, they're going to send the test off because it's a send off. And then that's 5 to 7 days before we get a result. In the meantime, this person could have came in with respiratory distress or what have you. And so we just got to take care of them. And it's actually changed a little bit when this all kind of started going. Policy was like, okay, it's going to be one nurse to one COVID patient, and they got to be in the ICU. As things changed and as staffing got a little bit more difficult, now they're like, okay, they don't have to go to the ICU. They can go to med-surg. They don't have like crazy symptoms.
This is what for Corona?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So when it comes to working at a hospital, I know it's hectic. How do you prepare yourself mentally? And does it get to you as far as like, cause it's a depressed place, man. Being in the hospital is depressed as shit. Like I feel like it's just, so like, how do you
salute to you, bro?
Yeah. So how do you get like over it? And what do you, I don't know, like what is the vibe?
With any job, you got some coping you got to be doing. You can't just hold on to it. But everyone copes in their own way. Some people play video games, some people drink. But for me, I know I'm doing what I love. That's the first thing I think about. And regardless of the patient, I'm doing my best. I think it's like, what if this was my family member? Would I be willing to put my scrubs on and do this for them? And so when I look back, I think I did the best I could for that person with my skill set at that time. And that consoles me some because you're not going to be able to save everybody. And there's going to be people that pass away. And it sucks. It does suck. But you do get used to it. And the first instance of it was, nothing specific. I'm not giving away a specific patient. But I was 18 and it was in surgery. And so person passes. The whole surgery team, doctors, nurses, everybody. Are y'all still going to that party this Saturday? Unrelated. Completely. I was kind of taken back. I was 18. I just got out of school. I know what to think about. Like, you guys are so treating this like it's nothing.
But I'm pretty sure they get it on a daily where it's like.
Well, we got to the locker room, and the best advice I got from one of the scrub techs was, you get desensitized. You do build like a wall where you're like, okay, like that happened. Sucks. But we got to take care of someone else too. We can't let that affect the next patient we're going to take care of, or the other patient in the room. I've been in situations, especially in the ICU. You got first ICU, ER, kind of two different personalities to work there.
What is the ICU?
So intensive care unit. That's as sick as you're gonna get. They're gonna do the best job. Oh, because they have more resources too. Everyone does a good job across hospital. I don't want there to be an impression that other departments don't do a very good job. It's just the ER is there to stabilize you and get you to the right specialist. Their specialty is take care of them, stabilize them first 15 minutes, figure out what's going on, get them to where they need to be. But if you come to the ICU, man, you're on death's door, or you might be headed there. So when in the ICU, you only have 2 patients, maybe 3 if you get triple. Crazy things happen. People come out of surgery, things happen. And you got to just roll with life to make sure you do the best patient care. So with those ratios, you might have 1 patient in 1 room. They might be hemorrhaging. You might be giving blood. You could be on your 3rd unit that night. And you have another patient over here. Maybe they're getting a lot better now. You're about to move them back up to med-surg. You still got to walk in there with a smile and be like, hey, what could I get you? Doing all right? How's your pain? Because at the end of the day, you still got to address those issues. You can't just go, well, I got a really sick patient. I got no time for you. You go, I'm going to do what I can for you. And I'm still going to keep my mind on, hey, here in a minute, I'm going to check those labs. Make sure that potassium's not too crazy. Heart's acting right. I'm looking at my EKGs. Luckily, we got a monitor tech. If anything looks abnormal, just kind of at a glance, she'll be like, hey, can you come look at this? There's a change. And then at that point, we print it off, look at it, calibrate, call the doctor. call the provider, hospitalist, PA, NP, and then they, they'll do their stuff, and we'll adjust treatment accordingly.
So with this pandemic, should we be panicking the way we are?
I don't want to panicking. No, never panic. It's a mindset too. I think works really good in the ICU. Even if things are going crazy, even if you know for a fact things aren't right, you got to keep a straight face and you got to keep things calm, because the way I was told by my preceptor, smart guy, he was like, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And essentially what that means is you got to slow down, think about what you're doing. If you do it right, it's going to be nice and smooth. You're going to get it all done the first time right. And that's fast because you're being productive. If you're racing around trying to get different things done at once and you don't get any of them completed, that's not fast. You just made it longer because you ain't got nothing done. So in the ICU, I've had situations, even when I was coming off orientation, and something happens. Something happens the minute I walked in the door, clocked in, and was told who my patient was. And I went in there, I look at it, okay, this doesn't look good, but hey, we're going to take care of it. I'm not going to let the patient know I'm freaking out. I'm not freaking out, but internally, I know something's wrong. Yeah, even if I wanted to, I wouldn't. So I'm like, all right, this ain't good, but I'm not going to tell them. Like, oh, we'll get this fixed. I'm like, well, we'll figure this out. And if I don't, so I go through my stuff. I got knowledge from school experience, and I got supervisors that have been doing it for 20 plus years. I ask some questions. I get some stuff done. They're not going to pass out right away. Things happen gradually. And, I get other specialists involved, respiratory therapists, which, really, hats off to them right now. And then if we can't all figure it out, then, we call a doctor. We call a hospitalist. We call whoever's on that night to take care of that patient. Then they come in, and they usually will always get that figured out pretty good after that. And then we're smooth sailing the rest of the day. Okay. So with the public, I think let's take this one day at a time. There'll be some changes, probably some things we won't like, but we need to do it calmly, because we just go out and start hoarding things, taking from, there's not going to be, we're not going to do our best job at containing this thing.
Yeah.
And so the best thing is to evenly spread out our resources where we need them to be, use them as best as we can, and slow this thing down. Get it. Hopefully we ain't got there. We're not where Italy's at. And,
you just got to be mindful, because everybody's panicking. I went to do some groceries today, and everything was pretty much, there wasn't anything on the shelves. But then you can see it in people's faces, they're panicking. Mm-hmm. They look all scared and stuff. So my thing is some people like to overbuy because they're panicking. They're scared and shit. But what ends up happening in the majority of the cases is that they end up overbuying stuff that they're not going to end up using, and that just ends up going to waste when somebody else could have just used it. Whether it was with food or product or whatever the hell it was. So.
And I gotta say, right now the public's been very good about going to the ER responsibly. It hasn't been a rush since this happened, and that's pretty surprising, because you'd think a lot of people would be very nervous and ready to go to the hospital, but since they told if you don't have it, you might get it there. There's it seems like people are actually paying attention now. If they
bring the mic a little closer to you.
Oh yeah.
You can just bring it can stretch a little bit closer, because this mic needs to be really.
Oh.
Is it gonna fall? Oh,
I'll bring it down.
Okay.
I'll bring it over.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah, that's all Gucci. Yeah, definitely need to get that damn table.
We're back in the cuts.
A custom table. All right, so we back, right? Let me get this drink real quick. All right, where were we? You can drink, bro. Go ahead. So yeah, going back to the panicking and the groceries.
So right
and
now,
shit.
you said if you don't have it and you go there, you can get it. How many cases have you dealt with so far?
So I don't think I'm allowed to speak specifics, because it might get me in trouble with my system. But there's a possibility we could have came across some, And in that case, there's protocols to it. The first policy was they made it to where only one visitor for if you're going with somebody to the hospital for the entire stay. So if you go with somebody, they sign you up, and then the rest of the time they're at the hospital, you're the only person that can visit them. No one else, because they don't want a lot of people coming in and out and then possibly transmitting this, especially with the people in the hospital are already sick. You don't want to add to it. Maybe it pushes them over the edge and gets them a little too sick. So that was one of the first policies. The other thing, too, is, we recommend, we can't really tell people not to do certain things, but we can recommend, hey, you probably shouldn't sit in the waiting room with a bunch of other people, especially if they're coughing, sneezing, you're within those 6 feet. Now there's probably a good chance that somebody's going to come in with it at some point, and somebody's going to cough on somebody, and they're going to cough on somebody. It's just kind of...
It's easy.
Okay, so how contagious is it? Because I work at a barbershop, and people are panicking. They'll, come in, and then they're like, what's up, bro?
Oh, they're like elbow.
Yeah, but at the
wash your
end,
hands.
if it's airborne, doesn't that mean that just by talking and shit you can get it?
So the particle is like the virus stays in the air or on things, and I think.
How long does it stay on the surface?
So the surface depends on the material, and I can't say don't quote me on this part, but I know some materials they said up to 3 days at least, and so you could touch a doorknob. And you didn't wash your hands.
Crazy, bro.
Someone walks up behind, grabs it.
Impossible to monitor.
And
that's exactly, and it's like it can spread so easily that it's like that's why they're like advising people to stay in their house, locking everything out. I mean, you said it; they're going to shut down the state, right? Like borders are going to be.
So something we haven't mentioned yet during the recording, I think, is I have friends that are in law enforcement. And one of them was a pretty good friend of mine, and he told me, come Monday here in Oklahoma, sounds like they activated National Guard, and they might be doing some roadblocks and start quarantining some stuff. But that's kind of as much as he told me, kind of.
They want to give too much information.
Right. So, if you're thinking of
what?
doing...
I'm keeping the shooter.
Damn, that's crazy. So
if you're thinking of doing something, going somewhere, you better do it now.
And you better come back before Monday? Because if
It's
not,
not gonna
you're
be
stuck.
like if you go to the store, you gotta be like.
Now remember, you heard it here first.
Now, are they gonna put a time?
Alex Jones told us about this shit.
Are they gonna put like a time where it's like you gotta be back home before a certain time, like 9 or some shit like that?
I don't know. That he didn't tell me, but
That's crazy. But
they've
it's a
already
fact.
closed-
Like this is a fact
But
already.
really, where you gonna go? Like they closed the bars down already. They closed the
Yeah.
restaurants down. They're
That's why Roy was saying. He was like, bro, just come in and make whatever little money you can, and what the fuck are you gonna spend it on?
and see,
I mean, if anything, if they end up doing that, like what is? Because I don't watch too much news because it's just
so I was watching just to stay informed of what's going on in other countries, just to see maybe if there's a trend and what might happen with us. In Italy, they started doing some videos where they're like, if I could talk to myself 10 days ago or 7 days ago, and they do videos where like, hey, take this more serious. Don't freak out. But like, I want to stress that. Don't freak out. But take it serious. Don't be out there goofing off, going to the beach like some of these people on spring break. Because now, it's gotten very serious over there. And it's to the point where you need like a signed and sealed piece of paper to go to the grocery store. You're not allowed to go. If you're too far from where you say you're going, or you're too far from your home, they're going to get you.
What about rent and all that? All these payments that are due. Like, what are they going to do with that? Are they going to freeze it and while this shit gets cleared up or what? That's what, I got so much questions and shit.
Gold's Gym.
It's hard to say, though,
Make sure
it's-
you freeze your account.
Like what can they do sometimes? It sounds like they're not going to be shutting off any utilities. I saw that on the news. I read about it. So, if you're behind, they're not going to cut you off. Make sure you still got water.
If it's still gonna affect your credit.
Probably.
Credit repair is about to be booming after this.
And
That
then
is
Trump's
crazy.
talking about giving like $1,000 in like 2 payments.
Yeah, so
true?
that's what they're saying. They're
That's
going to
what
do
they're saying,
two
but,
payments. One,
you know.
they're going to send you a check for $1,000 and then another check for another $1,000.
So he might be hooking it up.
Who knows? I don't know if there's going to be enough funds for that, but who knows? How are they going to fund that?
They create it, the Federal Reserve. So they Federal Reserve gives the banks a loan. They're like, oh, hey, I'll let you borrow some money with interest. And the banks are like, cool, we're liquid. We're going to be able to have some money so we can loan out money. And now everybody's got a little bit more money in these, in this interruption. Because ain't nobody making money right now, really. I mean, unless, you work at the hospital.
Or like I know the people that are like sending food out at those big ass warehouses. Like
Yeah.
they're
And
working a lot of overtime.
certain companies are starting to like catch on and go, hey, this is also an opportunity to help the public and probably make some money. It sounds like Ford is going to be switching some of their production into making ventilators. And why this is important, we use in healthcare, when someone comes to the ICU on a vent, it means we probably got a tube down their throat into their lungs, making sure that they got enough air and that it's pushing and it's opening them up wide enough that this person's going to breathe and be okay until after their body starts to get better, or this virus goes away, or whatever other ailment got them to that situation. The problem is, like in Europe, they didn't have enough. So at some point, they just told the older generation, I'm sorry, we're not going to use one on you. It is what it is. So they made them what's called DNR, do not resuscitate, do not intubate. They're just gonna, if you make it, great, but we're not doing anything for you because you're already at a high risk where we might never be able to get this tube out of your mouth.
They're like, you already lived your life. That's crazy. So it's getting bad over there in Italy. Like, it's getting bad, huh? Like, it got to the point where all the cemeteries were full or something. Like, they started to burn people.
I think today
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's on some crazy shit.
There was like some people on YouTube that work in healthcare over there, and they were like, yeah, we just stopped counting the dead. And I guess it's gotten worse.
How many cases, like, of death?
I don't know specifically. I've read it and I saw it on a video, but I don't remember the numbers. I kind of that's another thing.
Yeah, we need a Jamie in here.
You kind of want to
search up shit.
Tone it down sometimes. You don't want specific numbers because numbers sound bad, but the reality of it is even one is too many. You don't think about it. You're like, oh, 10's not that bad. But that's 10 people that maybe if you knew them, you'd have been like, that's a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, so those vents, if they switch production to making those, if people don't do the social distancing, which is great, because have you heard about
627 in 24 hours is what it says. That's only
627 in 24 hours. Yeah. That's a lot.
How many deaths in Italy total so far?
That's a lot.
So the curve, they don't take it serious. A lot of people get sick fast. There's only so many people that we can take care of in the health system, and then we run out of beds, nurses, and equipment.
You guys, I'm pretty sure, are pretty low on supply, huh? Or you guys still have some?
I feel like as far as I know, we still have plenty. And I was floating around the hospital, and I noticed that they kind of stockpiled some equipment on a floor that we don't use, and they're talking about opening this floor up to use it. But they had vents just down the hall, just lined up, ready to go, which is important because a few weeks back, we were maxed out. We had every bed maxed out, and we didn't have any more vents. If an emergency happened, you had to have what's called an emergency room hold, which means they actually have to take care of the patient. They have to keep the patient because there's nowhere to take them. We wouldn't have another vent.
Wow.
But that wasn't the situation, and they would find a way. They would find. They're gonna figure it out. But it didn't look good, so somebody went proactive and they said, hey, we're gonna make sure that doesn't happen. But there's only so much the system's gonna be able to hold at one time. So if they can keep everyone getting sick at once, and maybe they get sick over the long term, maybe they get sick, not this month, maybe like some here, some there, and they stretch this thing out. Now everyone's gonna get sick at some point, and maybe you get some immunity to it. And by doing that, you don't overload the system. And then we can still take care of everyone equally, just like we would any patient. Because we're not just doing the COVID patients. It's going to be the patients that are already coming in sick, the people that would have been sick anyway. Their bed was always going to be there anyway. But now we have to add to the system. And the system's only, the powers that be that are administrators and stuff, I'm sure they do like some kind of clinical analysis, and they look at the numbers and go, this is our population in Oklahoma City. This is about how many patients we get. This is about how much we can budget for. They break it down. They crunch the numbers. I'm sure they make sure. No, I won't go there. But essentially, they'll make sure that they have a good ratio where they're not paying too much and losing profits, but they're making sure they take care of the public. And whenever just everyone gets sick at once, they don't plan for those things. And they might be planning for it now that this situation arose, but it's not really something that they were looking at prior to. Now, there's another hospital system my friends work at. They'd messaged me on the way over. And essentially, what I was told was they're going to be emptying out the floor that they work on for the COVID patients, turning that entire floor into that, essentially. And then they want everybody to work 5 to 7 days straight on a team and then take 5 to 7 off.
Do we have a couple of cases here? Because I know in Tulsa there was 2 and like somebody
in Oklahoma?
passed away, yeah.
We're like beyond 11 now. There was just some more confirmed today. But yeah, no, we definitely do. We have some Cleveland. We have some Oklahoma City. We have, if we look it up right now, we'll go to the CDC website and see what the last update was, which they.
It was 4,032 deaths.
No, but here in Oklahoma.
In
Italy.
49 8 hours ago.
Damn. Yeah, it's bad. At the end of the day, damn, that's a lot. Yeah. It's a lot. But at the end of the day, like I say, like the flu kills. Still, it's not close to the flu. What the flu kills. You know?
But the problem with this one is like if you get the flu, you probably don't feel great. You get a fever, you get some symptoms, and then you're probably not gonna go out. You're not gonna go give it to somebody. You're gonna know you're sick. We got tests for it.
So
we got plenty of tests.
With the flu, does it?
With the flu,
it's like a quick, or does it take as long as Because it could take you 2 weeks to know, like, hey, I maybe got the.
I guess what's the difference between the flu and the corona?
As far as symptoms and like.
Symptoms. You might sneeze with one. The corona is mainly cough, a fever, body aches. Those stuff I was screening for one of the days. So one of the days, they just told me, hey, you're gonna be at the front. You're gonna be checking people as they walk in, visitors or patients. You're gonna be checking on before they ever even get to the ER triage. And so that was my job the first day of the week. I worked 5 days so far, 5 12s, and we're on Friday now. Is that right? Sometimes you lose track.
Yeah.
It's 60 hours this week so far. My very first shift was security event essentially, and then I went to the ICU, did my job with my patients. Oh, my bad.
So when you do how many hours a day?
12.
12.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
did you answer the question? Like, what's the difference between the corona?
Yeah.
So then, what the difference is, you can go to the ER, you can go to an urgent care, you can go to your primary care provider. If you got the flu, we can test for it. We can know you got the flu. We know Tamiflu might help, or that we know if it's too bad how to treat it. What's effective for it. Right now, there's no treatment for corona, and you could have no symptoms. And then there's no test really for people that don't have symptoms because there's barely enough kits as it is. And, it's kind of crazy because, like, the whole NBA has been tested. And yet, there's people with symptoms.
But they act like...
They'll tell them straight up. I know people personally that they're like, hey, you might have it. But guess what? You don't really have symptoms. You just need to go home, quarantine. And here's the crazy... there's a doctor I was talking to the other day. He said we're kidding ourselves by doing that. If we're not having them quarantine a specific location for the next 2 weeks, who's to say that you get it and you don't have symptoms after or whatever, and we tell you, okay, just go home, stay in your house. What is the guarantee that you'll stay at that house? There's so many people that they're not compliant on their own life in general. Why are they going to make sure that they take care of other people when they're not having problems? And
that's why the FEMA camps.
The what?
FEMA camps. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just fucking being a conspiracy theorist. Basically, they keep
but that's true.
That's what you're saying, though. People aren't responsible enough so you got to keep them in a certain place, right?
Look at these kids at the beach right now. Like, they're like, oh, well, I know the rest, whatever. Yeah,
they got some university kids going to damn spring break, hitting the beaches and shit, acting like it's nothing, like.
This is the future of our country.
That is, exactly.
But imagine if none of them die. They're gonna feel fucking badass.
Man, it's just some shit that you gotta take serious, Aaron. God damn it.
So yeah,
it is. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long do you think this is gonna take as far as controlling it and making sure we just kill this shit?
man, I'm gonna be real honest with you. I have no clue because this could be. They're looking at this maybe being a seasonal thing, where it's coming back every year, just like the flu.
Because
Like
you
a
think
new
in
flu.
summer, because it's hot, it might just die down a little bit, and then when winter kicks in,
Then there's still gonna
we're
be some
fucked.
people with it, like passing it back and forth between their family members, maybe or something, and then season comes back up. Now it's everywhere again, and we live in an age where travel is all over. You could be on the other side of the world in a day. It's just there's no telling unless the only way to like completely eradicate this thing, and you'd be able to eradicate the flu, probably. Everyone stays put for 2 weeks. I mean, just 100% nowhere. You don't
which
go
is
nowhere.
hard. It's hard.
And then you have to stop all movement all over the world.
That's like putting it's like going to jail for 2 weeks. I mean, us humans, we're not meant to be locked up. We're not meant to be like in
No, he's right. Psychologically, like we need that,
freedom.
even that connection. If you notice, like older generations, a lot of times they don't have a lot of family around, and they don't have maybe a husband or a wife, so they'll reach out anytime they talk to you. They'll touch you, like they'll grab your arm. They want to feel connected. And what's the biggest punishment we can give somebody in jail? Somebody that's already being
Take their
punished.
freedom away.
We pull them away from everyone else, put them in solitary. We put that like instinct of you would think, oh, you're getting me away from all these other criminals that are like violent. Great, you think you'd be super happy to be alone in yourself, safe. But no, you're like, no, I don't want to be in solitary. This place is maddening. I need some human connection.
Exactly.
We're tribal. We got to be in clusters, and that's what we don't need to be for this virus.
Which is hard. That's what I'm saying. Like it's gonna be a tough one. And like you said, like you send somebody home 2 weeks who say they're gonna. Shit, I even had the thought of it. Like when they send me home, I'm like, you know what?
Yeah, I don't know if you're
Puerto
seeing
Rico
some,
flights are cheap as hell right now.
right, and who's to say that you don't get it on the way there?
Exactly.
And then you think about it too, and you're like, okay, what about significant others? They want to see you probably. They don't, if you're stuck at your house and they're stuck at, who's to say they're gonna be like, oh, I don't care, I'm gonna come see you. People don't listen, but we try to educate. That's as nursing, we try to teach people about vaccinations. There's anti-vaxxers out there still.
They're still working on a vaccine, huh, for this.
Yeah, and there's a few big names that are moving into this. And so from what I understand, it's the mRNA or messenger RNA that they're working to try to control it. And I guess some people have tried some off-label like antivirals that they use for like malaria or even like Tamiflu and stuff, just to control maybe the symptoms, or maybe they hope it'll help them. There's no scientific evidence until time has passed. Like time has to pass for a while to be able to get a sample size big enough to be able to be like, we think this suggests. Scientific paper is never going to say this proves anything, because science is left open-ended for more information. So this suggests this. And even correlation's not always perfect. But yeah.
Wow, this whole thing is crazy. So what are your plans as far as advancing in the medical field? Like, where do you want to go from where you're at right now?
Before we get to that, I wanted to hit one more thing about the vaccination. Or they're trying to make a vaccine, which is, it takes, they're guessing about 1.5 years, but it looks like they've already had some type of success where they're starting to like try it in a small amount of people, and then they'll move it on to like the second stage and third stage in these big companies. But it's amazing that they've even got to that step already, because usually that takes like months. So they're
Do you think it's technology and
we
medical
have
science and
technology,
shit?
but they're actually like putting money into it. The thing is, it's like Bill Gates said in that tech talk. A lot of times we were preparing for wars, so there's war games and there's all this money being thrown at it, but we weren't preparing for a virus. And he said this years ago, and you go to wonder why he's a billionaire. But as for my aspirations, I'm still going to school.
On some real shit, do you think these people, these big, powerful men, reunite? They have a meeting and not reunite, but they have a meeting and talk about like, hey man, put some files on the table. This is the next virus we're gonna cause.
Maybe, I don't know.
What do you think? What do you think?
Alex Jones. That's why I said Alex Jones earlier, because he used to do that, like go to these places and be like, this person and this person are meeting here, and but that's why I don't know, bro. I don't. That's one of those where that's beyond.
So
I question.
That's beyond me.
That's for sure.
So here's where you got to be like.
That's for sure. I question that shit.
Well, ever put yourself in their shoes? Say you were like a dark, backhanded organization where you had some power and you could move some things. Who's to say that you don't accidentally mess yourself up? You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, that it can go wrong. I mean, worst case scenario, they did plan that meeting and they did talk about the virus and what they wanted to do. Maybe like they wanted to clean out some population and be like, you know what?
Who's to say that virus don't get back to your family?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like at this point, I feel like everybody's like, even those people are panicking. They're like, oh shit, this got way out of hand. I mean,
you mean like they're playing that one game where they like infect the world?
Yeah. So like you do you.
What is it? I mean, they say like population.
Yeah, when you
man, that's a
it's
whole
like,
other.
Yeah, so but it's something to think about. It's like when you plan something out.
But even if you think about it, though, what can you do about it?
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like at that point,
it's like pointless to even.
But
every election year, there's been some crazy shit. Ebola, Zika, all that.
But see, okay, so like this with this new vaccine they're trying to make, they got that information from like information that was freely available given from like some doctors over in China where it originated. Well, it seems like China was trying to. I hope I don't get you like demonetized here, but they're trying to shut off the information. In fact, the doctor that first recognized this was a thing, he ended up dying of the virus, and they had originally made him sign a paper saying that he was lying about the whole thing to try to prevent it from getting out, freaking people out. But it seems like now that the information's out, I mean, they really suggest that it was somebody was eating some bat over there, and that's how they got it.
That's the story that it started.
How painful is the death?
And that's never not painful, right? Maybe in like instance like car crash and stuff or instant things. But let's say there was a situation where you died of the coronavirus. From what I understand, this the knowledge that I know, it attacks your pulmonary system where like it can leave it scarred. But what'll happen is if it gets so bad that the symptoms that you have to be hospitalized in the ICU, you'll get a tube. So I'll come in, doctor will come in, we'll explain, hey, you're not breathing great. The doctor will do his teaching for the consent and everything. And then I'm like, okay, I'm going to first give you some pain medicine. I'm going to put in your IV, then I'm going to sedate you, and you're going to be out. And then I'm going to push a paralytic. And you got to be real careful with these things because they paralyze your body. You never want to push that first. You don't want anybody aware that they're paralyzed. But so now go through that. They stick a tube down your throat with a gyroscope. And it's not always a very comfortable situation because they could be breaking some teeth if it's an emergency situation. Or they could get it down there, and now you have a tube from your mouth all the way to your lungs. And that means that they've pushed past all the other stuff, maybe scraped. Sometimes there's blood that comes out of these things. And so you're on that thing, and I'm hopefully doing my job really well. I've got you sedated. I've got you on pain medicine, and you're not going to remember a thing. The whole time you're going to be like in a dream without pain until you wake up. If you wake up enough that we can be like, hey, squeeze my hand. We're going to get this tube out of your mouth. You're getting better. It's been times past. I made sure you didn't get any bed sores, all that. Then great. But if you do happen to pass, if it comes to that, hopefully I'm giving you enough pain medicine. The doctor's being aggressive enough with it, and I'm keeping the sedation at a level that keeps you sedated, but not so much that it tanks your blood pressure, or that I'm not causing your blood pressure to tank, because they do what's called a titration orders. So the doctor will be like, you can give from this to this, like propofol 50. It's called it's a sedation, and if I go too high, I tank that person's blood pressure. So I got to be real careful. I got to make sure you're sedated, but I'm not hurting you either. But if you're going to pass away from it, to really answer the question now, you got like a little bit of background to it. Hopefully it's painless. Hopefully you don't know and you just kind of pass into the night. But if for some reason we're trying to get you off of the vent and we got to turn all this stuff off to get you ready and conscious for us to take the tube out, and then a complication happens, maybe something else with your health goes wrong. Maybe your heart can't take it and you have a heart attack. That could be a very painful experience because now you got all this stuff happening to you at once: the body aches, the fever, the heart attack itself, and then we were hoping to get you off these meds. So now it's whatever you would have felt out on the street. Wow. It's hard to say, and every experience I've never experienced that, so I don't know. Yeah. But like, I want to hope that if you're in a hospital setting, it's painless. But I can't know for sure. Yeah.
So what is your take on 5G?
What is it?
What is your take on 5G?
What's that?
5G speeds?
Oh, speeds. Like
phone service. Like when we are now in 4G LTE, when we get to 5G. So on that technology, what do you think?
I follow a few YouTubers and kind of broke it down for me. The way I understand it, it's directional. It's not like our LTE. It's not like LTE where it's just like there's a tower and it's just throwing signal everywhere.
Yeah.
It's like more
like you have to be hella close to a tower, like a 5G tower.
Right, and they might make enough towers to create that. But then that tower also has to go directly to your phone. So if like there's a wall between this and the tower and that wall's like a lead, maybe you're in the hospital and some of those walls for the x-rays, they're lead. You're not going to get that. But luckily, it looks like it could default back to that LTE speed, which still ain't bad. But if it's the only setting you have on there, 5G, you don't have service.
As far as health, because it's they're saying that the 5G radiation waves are too strong.
I don't think there's been enough implementation or even time for us to know any of that. Because for a long time, they were like, oh, if you keep your phone too close to your body, you get cancer. That's not. So I took genetics last summer at OU, made an A, luckily. And I got to understand a little bit about how cancer forms. The thing about cancer is it's not a disease that you get from anybody, or it's a disease
that's already implemented in
it's you. It's your body made a mistake.
Right.
And didn't catch it. It didn't just make a mistake, it also didn't catch it. So your cells, they divide up, and you probably going over RNA and DNA. So the deoxyribose, whenever there's stages, there's like G0, which is like brain cells, S1, whatever. It goes through a cycle, and there's like little checkpoints where it's like, did I make this right? Did I copy this right? And if all the check marks are made, it makes a new cell, and your body has new tissue. Well, with cancer, the cell goes, it either breaks the tumor suppressor gene, which like if it finds a mistake, it's like, oh, you're not supposed to be here. And so it comes in, it's called apoptosis. It blows it up. It makes it self-destruct. So then there's, every day maybe our body's creating cancer, but our body's saying, no, you can't be here, you got to go. Or the other one is maybe that works and it tells it, hey, you got to go. I need you to apoptose. And the cell's like, I don't care. I'm not doing that. And so it just keeps growing. Mm-hmm. So it's your own cell. It's you.
We all have them in.
It's so just a matter of. That's why cancer is different. It's yourself. So you might give a certain treatment to somebody, and it might be very favorable for one person, but not for the other, because it depends how your body responds to it. And everyone's body's different. How my hair is and how someone else's hair is. Mine might be a little curlier, a little straighter, whatever. But so with radiation and like stuff like that, if you go into your Apple phone and stuff, you look down through like there's like policies and different things. It says like meets a certain level of like how much radiation it gives off. And for the most part, they understand that it's probably a safe level. But there's never a zero risk. And free radicals are what increases this. That increase the chance of your body making that mistake. So being exposed to things could happen, but as far as like literature and science, like no one knows for sure if 5G is going to be better or worse. It could be better. Maybe it's now you're not being exposed to that constantly. Now it's only being exposed when your phone needs the service. But we don't know yet because there hasn't been enough evidence out there to put together metadata, come together as a community, and then work that out. It really takes scientific method. It's annoying, but it's the best method we got.
Yeah. Very.
So, what are the symptoms for this coronavirus stuff?
Fever, cough, body aches. And the last question, usually, have you been around somebody that's infected, tested positive for it, or have you traveled? So there's some states that they've even sent out an email, told us pretty much, if you travel to these states, you're not getting paid if you do get it. So Florida, California, Washington, some of these states that have bigger amounts, and it sounds like they just added Texas to this list. The problem with that is we have nurses that come up from Texas to work our ICU. They live in Texas, and they haven't been back to Texas since the whole thing started. But now, you know, they got their family there. They got to go back at some point. Now, are they going to be allowed to come back and work?
So what is it if they leave? If they go back to Texas, they're fucked?
So like then
they won't get paid or what?
Like say the person goes back to Texas and they got the virus while they were working here at the hospital. And now they're in Texas with the symptoms and they can't work for the next 2 weeks. They're quarantined or whatever. The hospital's going to be like, well, that's too bad. If you don't have PTO, you're not getting paid. But if you're to stay in Oklahoma and you go to work as a healthcare provider and you go home and you end up testing positive for it, which means you're probably getting pretty sick because they're not going to test you unless you got some real symptoms. Then, okay, you'll get paid your hours for the next 2 weeks, your full-time status. Otherwise, tough luck. So it's difficult. There's travel nurses out there that come in from out of state to help fill in these gaps. And the government just made it to where, so I have a multi-state license, which means I can go to other states and work that are part of this compact. Not all of them, but a lot. And from what I understand, the government just changed it to where if you're like a nurse, doctor, or a healthcare provider, you can go work in another state without paying that extra fee to have a license that you can work in other states. Because I had to pay extra, and then they had to send my information to these states to let them know, like, I've credentialed, I've taken my tests, I've done my stuff, and my background's good. And you can employ him, and he'll take good care of your patients. Because at the end of the day, the Board of Nursing is really there to protect the public. That's their goal is, if you're going to be out there working as a nurse, you're going to provide the best care that we possibly can with the best knowledge that we possibly have. If you're a nurse that violates those, your license probably ain't going to last very long.
Wow.
And what's the test like?
So, they'll swab you, and they have like these purple biohazard bags. Usually like they're red ones for blood and stuff. These are purple. And you got to grab the bags and put one bag inside the other, and you're just kind of like laying like the little Russian dolls. And then you got to have somebody waiting for you outside of that space ready so that the minute you pull that bag out of the room, you dump it in that bag, and then they seal that one too. And then you transport it immediately over to the lab. And then they hold the tests in a certain area, and they do their own thing. And they usually want us to bring the tests together because once they get them, they run them. They want to run them together because if not, they got to set up this place for like 45 minutes and then do their stuff to get it ready to be sent off. Now, when it gets sent off, 5 to 7 days, we might get an answer. So you could have it and not, be hospitalized. And even we're going to be precautionary. We're going to have negative pressure rooms. These are rooms that they have their own vent system, like HVACs and stuff. And they pull the air. So they're not going to let that air be pushed into the rest of the hospital. They're going to pull it out in its own filtration. Mm-hmm. And so
You said what?
Sounds complicated.
For real, it's like too much shit.
Well,
huh?
Some problems right there.
Well, there's like a little
Yeah.
room, and like you go in there, you can put your stuff on. You got goggles, you got like all your stuff when you go in there and do your patient care. And when you
Oh,
get
so
out-
you're wearing all this when you're testing them?
well, not only when we test them, when we take care of them. So, we got to go in there if they're on a vent. If there was somebody, sometimes like secretions or like humidity gets into part of it. That's like the thing. You got to open it up, like empty it out, make sure it doesn't get down into their lungs. Or you gotta do things with them. There's like any patient, you're gonna be up close doing stuff. So the thing is, you gown up, you get out, and then you're gonna wash your hands. You're gonna do your stuff. You're gonna make sure to use your mask.
I would be so paranoid.
I mean, it's really not taking. We really forgot about it. Like, I'd say right now it's been mainly the supervisors. Well, it's been mainly like the supervisors. I mean, these experienced veteran nurses that like they've.
But see, if it gets out of
They're-
hand, there's not
Well,
so
right,
many. of
well, right now
those
it's like
experiences.
they're the ones that they're putting to do all this. As of right now, that they would be doing. So, but yeah, that's why they want to get that curve a little bit lower, because if we overload the system, you might get nurses at some point taking care of patients, and they might not be ready yet in their progression of their career to take care of that patient with the best efficiency. And sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it's just the situation itself. What's going to happen when you got to take 8 patients or 10? And that's just the thing. Is that going to be safe? Probably not. Ratios are important. But realistically, if you don't have the staff for it, you're not going to not take care of somebody.
And like for example, these 11 people that are with it here, are they just out in the streets?
Hard to say, because with HIPAA, your private information is protected. So if you came up positive, nobody would be able to talk about it. It's a secret, and that's fine, because we just have to know that they told you to do the right thing, and hopefully you did the right thing. That's why it's on the honor system. And then if you get hospitalized, you get hospitalized. But we're not gonna go out and be like, this person got infected specifically, because that would violate HIPAA. That would, I think that would violate some decency. Now people are gonna look at them different. I mean, sometimes people look at me different just for wearing scrubs, and they can be clean scrubs.
Even if you cough in public, it's
right
like,
now,
oh,
you came
shit.
out there, you're not gonna
your
take
allergies. You could have a flu. Yeah, the flu still exists. It didn't stop existing because this thing happened. And you get on an elevator, you cough and sneeze, which sneeze isn't even one of the symptoms really. And people are gonna be like,
That's crazy.
Oh, what?
Yeah,
Get this guy out of here. And yeah, like I'll be, a lot of nurses when they're off, sometimes we would still wear scrubs, because you know what? We're used to wearing pajamas to work. So it's nice when you're off, you might still wear your pajamas, but you're gonna have some clean ones, obviously. You're gonna take a shower.
Let's say nasty.
Usually
fuckers.
when we get home, from work, we have to go in through the garage and throw all our stuff into a dirty hamper, throw in the wash, and then we walk in through the house, because we don't want any of that stuff in the house with us.
Oh yeah.
So you're not gonna walk in and sit down on your couch. You're gonna drive home, probably get out of your vehicle, have some wipes, wipe your seat down.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Walk in through your garage, throw your clothes in there, and then go straight to the shower.
I didn't even think about that. Yeah, you like no interaction with your family until you shower.
No, you're like, I love you guys, but like, give me 30 minutes.
You got kids?
Yeah,
How many?
got one, and she'll be 12 pretty soon.
Okay. So with the school shutting down, what are you doing to keep her her brain going?
So I was already a nerd ahead of time, but we got a lot of books, man. And at the end of the day, we got that. We got some TikTok videos. We got whatever it takes.
With the TikTok videos, I mean, that has nothing to do with school. And
No. But sometimes it's like I think, what was it? One of the bigger universities came up with a studying technique where you take breaks. Your brain can only really absorb so much at a time. You need to take a 5-minute break here and there. It's been shown to increase your ability to study. So you might study for 30 minutes, take a nice 5-minute break. Now you're back on it just like when you started. You go for like 2-3 hours studying, you're not going to remember
You're gonna
anything
be
after
fried.
that. You're going to be like, man, what was it I studied at the beginning? you got to take those breaks, let your brain kind of like categorize everything, save it, and then go back to it. So you got to have those mental breaks from reality, or even books sometimes. Just a little bit of a break just to get your mind, make sure you're aware of your surroundings. Because sometimes you get lost in a good book. Man. It's like you're hallucinating these images in your mind.
While you read, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of trippy what they can do.
So when it comes to the next step after, being a registered nurse, you also mentioned you want to go to med school. So what is the next step that you're trying to go for?
So how that would work is I've been working on a biology degree. I have physics and organic chemistry to finish. And then there's a test called an MCAT. You take that test, and then you get some references from doctors that maybe you've met, you've worked around, or some people volunteer, they do scribe, whatever the work. I've been lucky enough to work in an ICU. I get to meet a lot of doctors. I worked in other departments and got to meet a lot of doctors there too. And we build, it's a partnership where, I'm like, I don't feel comfortable about this certain situation with this patient. And the doctor's like, oh, well, I like that you think about it like that, because now, that's a good thing to point out. Let me make some adjustments.
So when you go to medical school, how many years are you going to be doing?
So then if I get into a MD or DO program, if and when, right? And because, you just do your best. That's the only way I think of everything. You go in, you do your 4 years.
So you'll be doing another 4 years?
Yeah.
Shit.
But you know what? Like, it's split up into two parts. Didactics, it's like book work for the first two. So you're gonna book out, and some of it I feel like I might be bumping into a little bit of the same.
So let me ask you this, and you don't have to give the exact number. What's the average of a registered nurse as far as annual salary?
I could give you for Oklahoma.
Let's just do Oklahoma.
So different systems do different things for new grads. They usually try to catch you before you graduate, so they can like
kind of control your pay a little bit more.
Yeah, cater. I know that Baptist starts their people on med-surg at like $22.82. Like that's like their base, right?
How much?
$22.82.
Okay, so annually comes down to.
I don't know exactly.
Okay, I like the annual number more than just the hourly.
Maybe we could. Here's the complicated part. There's a shift differential. You get paid like $3 more for working nights and $3 on the weekends. So there's a little bit of math.
So if you do both of them, you get $6.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
on
shit.
top of that,
that's a $6 increase.
So if you'll multiply it, let's just do base. Let's say that the rest of it goes to taxes. $22.82 times 36 times 52. The reason I say 36 is we do 3 12-hour shifts if you're full time, and if you want to do overtime.
22 racks.
But in the ICU they pay more.
Good living.
So,
but
let me tell you.
That's one of those jobs though that you love it, so that's
exactly.
why. You know what I'm saying? It's like one of those.
Well,
like,
I'll tell you, they get paid more than that usually because.
So
that's
give me an average like yearly.
Well, that's your first year, right? And then after your first year, you got experience. Now you can really bargain your money as an RN, even as an LPN. I know LPNs. Say what?
What are you right now?
I'm an RN.
RN. Okay, cool.
Yeah. Even when I was an LPN, you could reach 60.
Oh shit! Whoa!
Are you slacking, Bucko? Slacking on the camera angles, but
as an RN, most RNs that I know, the in the ICU, about 75,000. I know an RN that's been in the game for a while, been able to like really, get their money up, and they make about 45 an hour, just regular core staff wage. There's also what's called a special per diem. There's some nurses that they got hired in at the right time where there was huge needs. They pay them $50 an hour. $50 an hour comes out to like $104,000 a year. But nice. I've also know a couple nurses that made more than that.
But how many? They're working a shit ton of hours.
I worked 60 hours this week. There's some needs, and then they offer you like your pay. You're gonna get your overtime.
That's what I'm saying. You got.
So at what point did you say I'm gonna do this and you did it? Like,
well, I mean, I honestly, for me, it came as a kid. I got hurt as a kid. I got hit by a truck.
So this is something you was passionate since you were a kid.
Yeah, this was never really about the money, because if it was the money, I probably would have done something else. Yeah. there's a lot of careers out there that you use the same amount of school and there's less stress and you're not dealing with life and death that you could probably make a lot more money in. I got hit by a truck, broke my elbow, went to the hospital. Huge respect as a kid. I was like, oh, these people help people. And so then like 8th grade came around and I had a teacher in like my honors math class and she's like, Christian, I think you'd make a good nurse. And at the time I didn't really know much about it. And then high school came around. They were like, oh, we got a CNA program at the Votech if you want to go check it out. And so I did that for a year, got that, and it kind of just it set me on a path.
Oh, so you did CNA?
Mm-hmm. I worked my way up. Yeah, I worked my way through most things.
I'm telling you, but with this kind of profession requires like a lot of like that's why my girl when she's like I want to be a registered nurse and this and that, I'm like
get on that shit.
Do it if you're passionate about it, do it because it's a job, bro. It's like a one hell of a job, man. Like you got to be on the books. You got to be constantly updated as far as medicine and all that good shit goes.
And nursing school, I don't want to overhype it, but anybody that's gone through it, they know how stressful it can be. So as far as I know, some people I've talked to in medical school, like if you got a test that week, there's probably not much else going on. If you're in nursing school, you might have to go to a lab on Tuesday, clinicals on Wednesday night till like 11:30, and you're gonna have a test on Thursday morning at 8 a.m. And those tests, man, they're like 75 questions, and it's select all that apply. So like you don't just get to like pick an answer, you get it's like you get to pick the answers you think are right, and if one of them doesn't have to be right, or one of them is right but wasn't, the whole thing's wrong. They don't give you partial credit.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes it'd be A through F. Wow. And you're like, this one's right, that one's wrong, this one's right, that one's wrong. And it could be about a specific disease. And you go through like your units. But it was a lot of study, man. Sometimes 12 hours a day, like 4 or 5 days a week before the test. And sometimes you got to
do Adderalls and shit.
Certain unit. Dude, sometimes it's like a test every week. So you're just constantly you get in a routine where you're just testing. You're like, oh yeah, I got another test.
So you were pretty disciplined when you were in college. Like you didn't go out and shit.
I mean, no, we still. Don't get it wrong. Like you're still gonna, like I said, you still gotta get your mind to separate itself from it for a little bit, so you can just.
You don't want to get burned out.
Yeah, you don't want to get burnt out because you can get burnt out real fast studying 40, 50 hours a week. I was doing this while also working. I was working luckily through an agency.
It's gone.
Done?
Yeah.
Damn, the batteries didn't last shit. I had 4 batteries already.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, that method doesn't work. I'm gonna have to switch it up. Quick. So when you do the 4.
What were you saying? You were in the middle of
going through school, working agency. It's like the best thing I can recommend anybody going through school because essentially you get to pick your hours, you get to pick your days, and you get paid more than if you were actually staffed at the hospital. I don't know why hospitals pay agency so much, but with Integris Medical Staffing Network, I think from what I understand, Integris owns them, so they're paying themselves. But like if you were a CNA, let's say, you go to the hospital and you get a core staff job, like you are work for that unit. You might get paid $10, $11, $12 an hour. If you go work for MSN, you're getting paid $17.50 to be on that same unit doing the same thing, and maybe you get a $100 bonus that day because they were short. And you get paid weekly or daily.
And that's just knowing which agency
and it's flexible.
to go with?
You got a test that week, and you can only work one day that week. You're going to pick that day up and tell them, hey, I got to work on Thursday. You got a place for me? Oh, yeah, I got a place for you. And usually you're not canceled. Core staff, they're going to want you to be there 3 days a week. They don't care about your school. They don't care if you got a test tomorrow. I hope you're studying on the job. Hopefully it's not a busy night. Which, let's be honest, work's always busy.
Yeah, exactly. So when you go and complete these 4 years, are you still going to be considered a nurse, or is there something higher?
Like after
RN, what's after RN?
Yeah, what's after that? Once
you
complete these 4 years in medical school.
Oh, in medical school.
Yeah, once you complete those 4 years.
With medical school, you finish medical school, and then you get essentially your D or MD, right? And you're technically a doctor, but you can't practice. You have to do a residency. Residencies vary, man. You could be like 3 years, it could be 7. Depends what you're doing.
So an extra 7 years on top of that
Well,
4 years you just did at medical
It
school?
could be. It could be.
No
Yeah.
wonder they come out with gray hair and shit. It's a
Dude.
lot of school.
Well, on top of that, like school probably costs you about $200,000, and there's some interest on that, right, for the loans. And when you come out, you're not getting doctor pay. In fact, residents make less money than nurses. They make like $55,000-$60,000 a year,
Dang.
and a new RN might make $75,000 to $100,000.
So
They're working about the same.
This is one of those things where it's purely like it's almost
It's
like purely about passion,
passion,
bro.
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Doctors
you're
are
getting
passionate.
kinda
They
fucked.
can't. They have to be be able to stick it out that long, because once they're after everything and after they're done, and now they become like an attending physician. Now they're gonna start being able to pay their loans back and get back and everything, get their money right. But man, they took a huge risk. If anything would have gone wrong, if they would have, in that meantime, now you're hundreds of $1,000s in debt.
That's some crazy shit. Because imagine you
I-
graduated, you got your diploma, but now you got all that bread you're going to potentially be making
What?
is going to that loan.
Yeah, and the reason, and then their residencies, there's actually a law now because they were working them too much. Essentially, it's cheap labor, and because they'd missed something with like the daughter of a lawyer, and she ended up passing away. I think it was like in New York or something. I think maybe it was like called Libby's Law or something. I don't remember exactly. And essentially, like stuff was missed. So now there's like a cap, which is still crazy, like 70 or 80 hours or something still. Where residents are at the hospital, like they have places to sleep there, like that's their life for their residency, and so sometimes nurses have to check their stuff because maybe there's a resident that's sleep deprived and has like a whole hospital of patients, and you call them and you're like, so and so got prescribed this, they're allergic to it. So and so got amiodarone, we're coming up on 24 hours, we can get pulmonary toxicity at that point. Can switch to a PO or by mouth instead of an IV. We're down to the 0.5 per minute. So you do gotta kind of remind them, nudge them, hey, let's make sure to do the best patient care here. I know you're tired, but I gotta wake you up anyway. And the coolest thing is like the ER doc kind of broke that for me. When you're a new grad, the best thing I can tell some of the nurses, when you're a new grad, you might be a little timid about calling. You feel like you're bothering them. No, don't feel like that because there was an ER doc I was working with. He was like, don't feel bad about calling the ones that are on call. They're getting paid the same amount to be at home, get on call as I am to be here in the ER. And maybe that's not even if that wasn't the case, they're on call to take care of their patients. That's what they should be doing. Just like if I was on call, if I signed up for it, if I signed up for something, that's my word. It sucks, but let's take care of the patient. So I'm just like, hey, this is going on. Give them my S-bar. We have like it's like a system, but it's a good system. While I hate scripts, when I was a real estate agent, we had scripts, man, and they were the cheesiest things. But as a nurse, it's good because you're like, hey, I'm calling about patient so-and-so, their soul, or like their age. They're under these providers as well. They came in for these problems, but they also have a history of this. This is what's going on with them, though. I want to tell you, can we do something about it? And depending on the provider and how cool, like how much you've worked with them, sometimes you can really make some recommendations. Like, hey, do you mind if we do this? Like, would this be okay? And they're like, oh yeah, no, we're gonna do that. Or maybe they got like some sleep apnea, and you're like, oh, I noticed there's not like a CPAP or something to like keep the air moving when they're sleeping. And so the provider like, oh yeah, let's do that. And so yeah.
Yeah.
So how long did you do the CNA stuff?
Oh man, I actually did that for a few years before I
What's the CNA?
Basically, you guys, it's like the...
You're an assistant. So you're not gonna be pushing meds. You're not gonna be doing some of the stuff that traditionally you might see on TV.
It's kind of like the dirty work,
You
kind
do
of.
a lot of dirty work.
You gotta
It is what it is.
You gotta wipe people's butts.
That kind of
You
shit.
do everything, and you don't necessarily have to every time. I mean, there's people that can do it themselves. You're not gonna do it for them. But if they're that sick, that might be a thing that happens, and that's the thing in nursing. I don't want any nurse to ever think that they're too big to help somebody. It's not gonna be like Grey's Anatomy where like 5 doctors are ambulating your patient. That's never gonna happen. But you're gonna have doctors that go above and beyond. Yeah, you will. You have doctors that spend time with their patients and really get to like listen to their concerns, and those are doctors I can really respect, and they catch stuff, man. And we have some good providers where I work. I mean, even before I ever worked there, even before I got the interview, I'd already been told about how great they were. And so that was cool going in. I knew I was going to a good system. I was pretty excited.
Damn, that's crazy.
How long did you do the CNA stuff?
Man, that was 2.5 years downtown on an oncology floor, cancer floor. And yeah. And
So
then,
CNA, and then what was next?
LPN.
LPN, how long did you do that?
Man, over a year. It was, I even went agency for a bit. And then I was working at the jail as an LPN. And
then you're going to school while you're doing this.
oh,
so
yeah,
you
yeah.
can go
I
on
was
to the
going to
next
school the
step.
whole time. And
Grinding
so
it
I
out.
still had to pay the bills, man. I still had a family at home. I had switching careers because originally, I was doing construction. I had my real estate license. But then, it's like, hey, don't kill me, but I want to be, I want to finish. I want to be a nurse. Like, I've always wanted to be a nurse.
Who did you tell that?
To my wife. I was
Okay.
like, hey, I know we're living comfortably. I know things are.
Money was flowing at that time.
Yeah. We had an excess. And it's like, we can go on vacation. We can do things. And it's like, don't kill me, but I want to fulfill my career. I want to feel like fulfilled at work. I want to come home happy that I feel like I did something. And she's like, no, I'll support you. Like, I'll work too. And so, she's been working full time with me.
Because at that moment where the cash flow was all you bringing in the.
I mean, I don't want to say all, because she's always like had a job. But I mean, man, after that, man, she was really helping out. I mean,
Stugging it out.
so we're going through it together. It's like she was going to nursing school with me because, even if I brought my friends over to study and we were using the TV to like put the questions up there, she was in the background maybe offering us something to drink, or like she heard all the questions. Sometimes she'd answer the questions. Oh yeah, you said that last time. This is the answer.
So you have do you normally do like, okay, invite some friends over, let's do some study sessions, and
So that also makes it easier to study. You like, I wouldn't get a huge
it makes
group.
it funner too, huh?
Yeah, you can make like maybe a group of 3, maybe 4. You don't want it to be too big because you get too many ideas thrown around. But we'll get these good questions that are like quality questions from the lecture or the book or whatever. We throw them up on the screen, and then we go through and we just reveal the question, not the answer. And we're like, okay, what do you think it is? And I'm like, man, I think if they got congestive heart failure, they're probably gonna be on some Lasix. You probably want to, because of the Lasix that makes them pee more, you probably want to watch the potassium level because that'll mess their heart up more. It looks like, and then you break it down. You give them a reason why. You're like, you never go, I think it's ABD. Like, no. Well, why do you think it's ABD? Okay. And then you sometimes you argue. Sometimes you're like, man, did you not listen? There's also this side effect with ACE inhibitors, and if they have a cough, like maybe get them on an ARB, and then you reveal the answer, and you figure out who was right. And then now when test time comes, you're like, oh man, he got me on this, but I'm not gonna miss this question now. And so it works out pretty good like that study.
That's what Karina was saying on the last podcast. She was like, I had a class where you had to do all this, like figure out a patient, and like she was like, fuck that, I couldn't do it.
It's definitely I think it's a fun way to keep you excited, at least to study, because I think studying is like one of the toughest part for you to
the thing is with them though is that I imagine it's fun for you, right? Because you're learning
it's more
how you're
interesting.
gonna like take
Instead
care of
of-
your patients. Like,
Yeah, instead of being like learning about the maybe anatomy of alveoli and like the surfactants.
my bad. I think a lot of times like people think studying and they think like fucking high school just. But if you're studying something that it's like when you study video stuff, like,
Or like maybe you're interested in the heart stuff. Maybe you want to be a cardiology nurse. You want to go work at the heart hospital. You might really focus in on that anatomy where you're like, okay, S1, S2, like the EKGs. This is J point elevation. Here's an ST elevation, and you're like, oh, this is exciting because now I know if I ever see that on my patient, I know exactly what I'm gonna do. And I got what's called ACLS, which is advanced cardiovascular life support. And so you get like your CPR, BLS, and then this a little bit more advanced where now you recognize rhythms. Now you recognize somebody goes into a VTAC, VFib or something, you can recognize it. I have patients where they go into what's called AFib with RVR, which means their atriums are kind of just quivering. And RVR is rapid ventricular rate. So then the main part of the heart that squeezes out the blood to the rest is fast. I mean, it can get fast, and you want to fix it quick before it gets worse. So now you're calling the doc. You're like, hey, I just looked at this. I believe it's AFib with RVR. I'm gonna send. Can we do an EKG? And they'll probably say yes. You get the EKG. Doctor reads it, and now you're probably running some amiodarone or some cortisone.
Oh, it's falling again.
I can tighten it this time though.
Yeah, we definitely got to fix that out. It's a little annoying. Yeah, sometimes it's
Okay, that's good.
It's good. Okay.
Yeah. But
I mean, man, this is a lot of information, man. Like, it's so much that like I'm trying to process everything. Like,
Karina said, "I feel stupid."
well,
in this sense, is like shit. Like, it's a lot.
Nah,
well, I'm giving you like summer nursing school here.
Yeah, but it's some good ass information, man.
Some good information for the public. I think is if you do get sick or you're not quite figuring out it's not the flu or something, I mean, maybe stay away from some of do that social distancing. Really try to protect your family and your friends and everybody around you, because the more responsible we are, hopefully the better outcome we get out of this. Because if
exactly.
Were you a pretty healthy person before you became a nurse?
Oh, yeah. So I used to do men's physique shows, like just to, I don't know, man, just maybe for the vanity originally. Then eventually I got into the health aspects of it. And then I really wanted to know how to make myself healthier, because I graduated weighing 150 pounds. And now I'm like 2-something. But I feel good. I feel healthy. I can't say, I don't think you should ever talk down to people about their body, but I think you should be proud of your own and that you can work hard to get somewhere, because everyone's got their own goals. And I don't think anyone's ever been 100% where they're like, oh, I think I'm perfect. And maybe if you do get there, let me know what you're doing.
I don't think so. I think that's a never-ending goal as far as where you want to get with your body. If it's, I mean,
unless you just don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I guess it's when it comes to losing weight, you can't get to that limit where you're happy. But then I feel like you always find something like, oh, now let me add some muscle to it, or as far as building muscle, I feel like there's never that ending point. Like, The Rock looks like a fucking rock, but this nigga wants to keep getting bigger. So it's like, But
there might be somebody that's like, I don't know, more confident than The Rock, and they don't even look like The Rock.
Learn over nutrition in nursing school. I was like, oh, so that's what I'm doing wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, there's been a lot of good information, man. I definitely need to get you back in this podcast. Hopefully when we get you back, because I know there's a lot more to talk about, but we're having a lot of technical difficulties. Right now my computer's about to die. But it's been a good-ass podcast. Well, I appreciate you coming through, man. You gave us a lot of good information.
Before we go, just give them some recommendations on how to stay safe and...
Wash your hands.
How often?
I mean, as often as you can, honestly, because you're touching stuff. If you're doing things, you want to get that stuff off of there if you can. Wash it off. That soap helps it break up, destroy it, and then apparently affects the outer layer. But... then, if you do have a cough, cover it up. Don't go coughing on people. Or if you see somebody with a cough, maybe try to avoid them. Get your 6 feet. Get your meter away from them. You don't be too close. You don't want to be enclosed in an area where you're in a room and, some of them might have it, and then now you're breathing in the same particles and air. And
don't hotbox, kids. So that's one.
And use your resources responsibly. Don't if you're feeling bad, still get seen. But don't just go to every ER that you on your way home from work.
Yeah. So let's wrap this up, man, because the microphone is falling off for the third time. We definitely gonna fix this. But man, Christian, thank you very much for coming through. We definitely going to have to have you on a different episode. We're going to wrap it up, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for those who will stay watching. Merch coming out pretty soon. That's about it, man. We're out. Peace.